Some days the joy of life is interrupted with what we encounter in the news. You open up the newspaper and you see headlines like this. A man in Toronto swarmed by a group of teenagers and killed. Ken Lee, 59 years old. You open the newspaper, you see these headlines, and the joy of life it sort of bursts and flows out. And you wonder, what is wrong with our world? But what's wrong with our world that now our children would behave this way? And it's easy to feel helpless and not know what to do. But you get your bearings and you find some hope and some optimism. But then you open up the newspaper again and you see another headline. 6 teens charged in November swarming at a Calgary drugstore. Police. And again, you wonder, all of this, the social unrest, these acts of evil feel so overwhelming. What can I do, one individual, little old me, to make a difference in a world that seems bent on destruction? And what do we do? That our children are the ones who are making these headlines, this pain, this suffering. But you find some little shred of optimism, some bit of light to move forward into the world. But then you open the news again, and yet another headline. Swarming attack by 10 to 15 young people leaves 2 transit workers hurt, Toronto police say. And you see the video, and then you see the uncertainty, but still, you're left wondering, what can I do about this? What can any one of us do about these challenges in the world? And we feel helpless. We feel overwhelmed. We feel swarmed, unable to find a way forward. I mean, these headlines are the reason why we live in little old Strathroy, right? But then we remember that Strathroy, we make our own headlines that the rest of the country reads. What's there is here. I hope that some of you right now are thinking to yourself, Brad, I didn't get up this morning and come to church so that you could just depress me with bad news. I didn't come here on Sunday morning so that I could just feel worse about a life that's already difficult. And you're thinking in the right direction. You're thinking about the question, what do we bring to worship? When we gather in this space, what is it that we present to God? And what do we hope to get in return? For each and every one of us, it's a different struggle, I'm sure. There's something unique in each of our lives that is its own personal headline, its own personal struggle, its own personal challenge or sadness that can leave us feeling overwhelmed and helpless and uncertain what it is that we can do as not just citizens, but as followers of Jesus Christ, to make one little dent in the armor of evil in our world. It can feel overwhelming, and we come to worship just wondering what it is that we can do. Here's what God is saying to us through the prophet Micah about what we're to bring to this communion table, to this hour of worship. Micah sets it up as this big question. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? What is it that I should bring to God and place before God when I gather for worship? That's the question that Micah is putting out there for his original audience to contemplate and for us to contemplate. And before we get an answer, we get an even bigger question. Shall I come before God with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? For some people disconnected with farm life, that may seem odd to you, but when you've invested so much time and energy raising livestock or planting fields, it's quite the offering to take the first or the best of your work and put it before God and say, here, I acknowledge that what I have is yours, and I'm blessed to steward it for a bit. But Micah doesn't stop the questions there. Puts it differently. Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? And we're reminded that it doesn't matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter that you have all the resources available to you that you want, that you can bring bounty before God. Is that what God's looking for from us in our lives? But Micah goes and adds another question. Shall I give my own child for my sins? Should I give the fruit of my body in order to address my sin, the sins of the world? What is God looking for from us when we come to worship and make an offering? When we hear the headlines that I read a moment ago, it's easy to fall into bringing these gifts to God. That we come before God feeling it's completely helpless. There's nothing I can do in this world of evil. That when we're feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of the world, we can feel completely skeptical about others and even ourselves, rather than feeling hope. Or we can drink the poison of cynicism, where we doubt the intentions of everyone else, hold everyone's intentions suspect. When we get up on Sunday morning and we gather for worship, is that what God is wanting us to bring to God's communion table? For a little while now, before the offering is received, you know what we've been doing together. I've been offering us an opportunity to bring something from our lives to this offering table. More significant than, though with gratitude, the financial gifts that we bring. The invitation is, I invite you to think of a blessing that you've received this week so that it can be placed here and we can say to God, thank you. And you'll notice this morning I did something different. It's, can you call to mind some act of seeking justice, or offering loving kindness, or walking with humility with God? Can you think of some moment in this week when you've done that, so that you can put it in, so to speak, your collection plate, your offering envelope? Lick it, seal it, bring it, as a way of saying to God, I know it's a difficult world, but I'm still going to offer some kind of blessing. I'm going to try and be your good news to the world. I mean, you know that I was telling you a few weeks back that with the new offering envelopes, we've designed them in-house so that we don't have to keep buying them, which means that we could print anything we want on the offering envelope. You probably have offering envelopes sitting in front of you right now. So when we were designing what's going to go on the offering envelope, we thought, okay, we're going to add this category, that category, this and that. Imagine, though, if we redesigned the offering envelopes so that there were, some check boxes, and you could check them off when you put something in that offering envelope. Specifically, this week I sought justice. Check. Like this week I saw an injustice, and despite my fear and being overwhelmed, I stepped forward and I looked for a way to bring corrective justice. Imagine that printed on the offering envelope. Or I offered loving kindness to somebody. Check on the offering envelope. Or at least I walked humbly with God, recognized my own faults and humanity. Imagine as we opened up our offering, we got our offering envelope at home, we're getting our par ready. We open the envelope and we just pray into that empty envelope. Not helplessness, skepticism, and cynicism about the world, but we recalled, okay, I did my best to seek justice, bring loving kindness, and walk humbly with God. And that's what's received here. Sometimes when we are confronting the world, it may not be possible for us to correct, to bring justice to an injustice. Sometimes we have to triage, or I don't know how to put it, but despite our best intentions, we just can't make that difference. And I think one way to think of Micah's teaching to us is to think, well, if I can't correct an injustice, at least maybe I can do that one little thing. One kind thing out in the world. That in the grocery line I can offer some little help to someone, or at the street corner I can offer some kind of kindness. And there are people who can't even receive our kindness. But then at least maybe we can just walk humbly through that situation. Remember that we're human, and the other person is human too. And at least we have that in common from God. And today may not be the day that I can do justice or I can offer kindness to someone, but there's going to be a tomorrow. What does the Lord require of us when we come to worship? But to seek justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. So I started the sermon out, a really heavy note. Let's end the sermon on a light note. This is a picture from the Guinness Book of World Records largest water balloon fight in the world. And it happened at a university down in the States, the University of Kentucky. there were almost 9,000 people involved. So imagine the stadium, and you know how those American college football stadiums can be. Packed with young people, 9,000 of them, ready to rush to the center of the field where there were 175,144 of these water balloons waiting to be grabbed to arm yourself for achieving the world record. The best part of it for me is it was organized by the university's Christian Student Fellowship. The Christians got together and said, let's have some fun. Let's turn all of our inclinations for aggression into something that's communal and is a delight. Now you know how it is. Even when you try having a fun time, some knucklehead gets involved. And here's a headline from the university's newspaper, the Kentucky Colonel, and the headline is, "Water Balloon Fight Raises Security Questions." At least 6 people were tackled by student volunteer security officers Friday night after prematurely rushing the William H. Pierart intramural field where thousands of people gathered for the annual water balloon fight. The people who rushed the field were taken down. One put in a headlock before reaching the middle of the field where hundreds of thousands of water balloons were lined up. Even in the church's best attempts at presenting the world with some alternative to its understanding of conflict and injustice, even our best attempts fall short, and we end up getting pulled into the very thing that we are trying to overcome. And it can become overwhelming. But despite those best intentions, God calls us to bring justice, to love mercy when we're interacting with others, and walk humbly with God. Not to be overwhelmed, not to be skeptical, not to tackle others and put them in a headlock so that they conform to our understanding of how the world should be, but so that as we come before God each and every week, we're able to say, okay, this is what I did with the life that you gave me. I tried my best. I made a difference, turned a wrong into a right in this little corner of my world. I was merciful to somebody who is having a hard time. Or I remembered that I'm not perfect, and so I'm going to recognize the humanity in others. And that's what God wants from us when we gather in worship. Amen.